Imagine being alone in your own home on a stormy night, rain pounding like thunder, windows rattling, and every shadow whispering secrets you wish you could ignore. But then, strange sounds crawl from the walls, and a door appears where none should be. A chilling voice calls your name, and the reflection staring back at you isn't quite your own. What would you do when the very place meant to keep you safe becomes a prison of unseen horrors? Before we dive in, make sure to follow and support this channel for more terrifying true stories that will haunt your nights. Stay with us, and don't blink, you never know what's watching. Tonight you're about to find out. It was one of those nights when the rain didn't fall, it poured. Thunder cracked the sky open like a whip, echoing through the sleepy neighborhood of Cedar Hills. Most of the homes on the block were quiet, tucked into the rhythm of a cold Friday night storm. But in the little rental house at the very end of Brookridge Lane, one porch light flickered nervously against the dark. Inside, Emily Carter sat curled up on the living room couch, sipping chamomile tea with her legs under a blanket, the low hum of lo-fi music playing softly from her phone. The power had already flickered once earlier, but it came back just as quickly. She had laughed it off, chalking it up to the storm. Emily was used to being alone. Ever since she moved out of her shared apartment 2 months ago, she found a certain peace in the quiet. No roommates. No noise. No one coming in and out. Only now, with the storm swelling, that quiet was starting to feel heavier than usual. A flash of lightning lit up the room for half a second. The windows vibrated from the following thunderclap. She reached for the remote and lowered the music. It was too calm for how tense her chest suddenly felt. Her phone buzzed on the armrest. A message from a familiar name. Jason. You sure you're okay being alone tonight? Emily exhaled through her nose, annoyed. She hadn't replied to him in days. The breakup was messy, filled with silence and long messages he never deserved. She thought he'd finally stopped trying. Another flash of lightning. A louder crack of thunder. She turned her head toward the back patio. The glass door shivered slightly in its frame from the wind. But there was something about it, like it was moving. Emily got up slowly and walked over. The rain was beating hard against the glass. The yard light, set on a motion sensor, stayed off. Nothing was out there. She placed her palm against the cold door. Locked. A sudden thump came from the kitchen. She froze. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Like something falling, maybe a utensil or a glass. She stayed perfectly still, listening. The wind outside howled like it was trying to get in. No more sounds came from the kitchen. Just the storm, she whispered to herself. Still, she took slow steps toward the kitchen, peeking her head around the doorway. The counter was clear. Nothing was on the floor. The fridge hummed softly, steady and normal. Nothing out of place. She returned to the couch, but something about that sound bothered her. She checked her phone again. No new messages. No service now either, just a red bar and the word searching. A second later, the porch light blinked out. And in the silence that followed, Emily realized for the first time that night, she didn't feel as alone as she should have. The wind picked up outside, rattling the tree branches against the roof. Emily stood at the window now, arms folded tightly against her chest, staring out into the dark yard where the porch light had gone dead. It was just a bulb, she told herself. Probably shorted from the rain. Still, the longer she stared, the more it felt like the shadows were moving. She drew the curtains shut. Just as she turned back toward the couch, she heard it again. A dull, dragging sound. Not inside, but close. Too close. She paused mid-step. The sound came again, slower this time. Something scraping along wood. Maybe the side of the house. Or the back porch? She walked toward the back door with cautious, measured steps, her breath held tight in her lungs. The backyard was pitch black now. No motion light. No moonlight. Nothing but the wall of rain smearing the glass. She flipped the porch light switch a few times. Nothing. Dead. Then she crouched slightly and peered out. Still no movement. But that sound, the dragging, had definitely come from outside. She unlocked the door, just for a second, and cracked it open. A gust of wind shoved it inward with a burst of cold air and rain. She shut it again immediately, locking it with trembling fingers. The floor near the threshold was wet now. She grabbed a dish towel and knelt to wipe it. That's when she noticed them. Smudges. On the inside of the glass. Faint, long streaks, almost like fingerprints that had been dragged downward. She stared at them, frozen in place. They hadn't been there earlier. She would have seen them. Her skin crawled. She backed away slowly and turned off all the lights in the living room, the kitchen, and the hallway. Only the bedroom light remained on. From somewhere outside she thought she heard footsteps. She couldn't be sure, not over the rain. But it sounded like slow, squishing steps, like someone walking across the wet lawn in heavy boots. Emily tiptoed down the hallway to her room, trying not to make a sound. Her heart was pounding now, each beat loud in her ears. As she reached her bedroom door, her phone buzzed again. A new message. Jason. Hey, if you're not going to answer, at least let me know you're safe. I just had a weird feeling. She stared at the screen. The timing was too strange. Emily typed out a quick response. I'm fine. Just the storm. Don't worry. She hit send. The message failed. No service. Just as she was about to turn the phone face down, a new notification popped up. But it wasn't from Jason. Motion detected at backdoor camera. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't own a security camera. Emily stared at the notification on her phone screen, her fingers tightening around the edges. Motion detected at backdoor camera. She didn't have a camera. She never installed one. Her landlord didn't mention one either. She tapped the alert, but it vanished before it opened. The screen glitched and flickered, then went black. Come on, she whispered, pressing the side button. Nothing. Dead. She rushed to plug the phone into its charger by her nightstand, hoping it was just the battery. A few seconds passed, then the screen lit back up with the charging icon, 18%. A loud pop echoed from somewhere in the house. The lights flickered once, then twice, and went out. She stood in complete darkness. Only the dim glow of her phone charger lit a small corner of the room. She waited, holding her breath. A low click came from the hallway. Then another. Like someone slowly pressing their fingers against the light switches on the wall, one by one. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight, the narrow beam cutting through the dark. She aimed it at the doorway. Empty. She moved cautiously into the hallway, listening to the old house creak under her steps. The air felt thicker now. It wasn't just the rain anymore, it was the stillness. Like something was waiting. She passed the living room. A sudden gust of wind hit the windows hard. Thunder boomed overhead, shaking the glass. She flinched, and that's when she saw it. The front door. Wide open. Rain whipped in across the floor. The doormat was soaked. Her heart stopped. She knew she'd locked it. Emily ran forward and slammed the door shut, deadbolting it. Her hands were trembling now. She checked the knob 3 times. Locked. But as she turned back toward the living room, she noticed something that made her legs go numb. On the wooden floor, Leading from the door to the middle of the room were wet footprints. Bare. Human. Facing inward. They stopped just a few feet from where she stood. She backed away slowly, her eyes scanning every corner of the room. "Hello?" she called out before she could stop herself. No answer. Only the low rumble of thunder. She retreated to the kitchen and grabbed the heaviest thing she could find, a metal flashlight. She clicked it on and held it tightly in both hands, scanning each room as she moved. No one in the bathroom. No one in the hall closet. Bedroom still empty. Nothing under the bed. Every window still shut. She checked the front door again. Still locked. The footprints were drying up, smudging at the edges. But she could still see where they had ended. She returned to her phone and opened the camera app, hoping to catch something, anything, that would explain what the hell just happened. But the camera app glitched. It blinked once. Froze. Then opened. And on the screen, for half a second, she saw a face behind her in the mirror across the room. Pale. Expressionless. Staring straight into the lens. She spun around, swinging the flashlight blindly. But the room was empty. Emily's lungs froze as she stood in the middle of the room, staring at the mirror across from her. The face she'd just seen in her phone camera wasn't hers. It was pale. Still. Almost unreal. But it was there, just for a second, watching her from behind. She spun around, clutching the heavy flashlight, its beams slicing through the darkness. Nothing. The room was empty. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts as she turned slowly back toward the mirror. It now reflected only her, wide eyes, trembling hands, hair damp from the rain. No one else. Nothing behind her. Just shadows clinging to the corners of the room. But something about the mirror felt wrong now. It was too still. Too quiet. Emily took a slow step forward. Her reflection matched her movement, but the hallway behind her in the mirror wasn't empty anymore. There was something there. A shape. A dark outline standing far down the hallway. Just barely visible in the mirror's edge. She turned to look down the hallway in real life. Nothing. Back to the mirror, the shape was gone. She stepped back, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The air around her felt dense, thick, almost buzzing. She grabbed her phone again, desperately opening the settings. She scrolled through the device connections, trying to see if someone had accessed a hidden camera or synced something to her phone. Then, suddenly, another notification slid across the top of her screen. Connected device, backroom speaker, active. Emily stared at it. She didn't own a speaker. Especially not in the back room. Her fingers trembled as she tapped the notification, but the screen went black again. This time, not from battery. It glitched, flickered, then turned itself off. Behind her, from deep inside the house, a low sound began to play. Music. Not from her phone. From somewhere down the hallway. Old. Crackling. Like it was coming from a record player that hadn't been used in decades. She backed away slowly, eyes locked on the black hallway. The music grew louder. And beneath it, she could hear breathing. The music echoed softly from the hallway, distant but unmistakable. Emily recognized the melody. It was an old tune, something like a lullaby, but warped, slowed down, as if the record were melting. Each note dragged out just a little too long. She stepped out of the bedroom, holding the flashlight like a weapon, the beams shaking as she moved. The hallway was cold. The kind of cold that felt unnatural. Not from a window left open or bad insulation. It felt wrong, like walking into a place where time wasn't working right. The music was coming from the far end, near the linen closet. But just past it, there was something strange. A door. A door she had never seen before. Her landlord had mentioned 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a kitchen, and a utility room. That was it. Emily had lived here for nearly a year. She knew every creak, every stain, every corner of this place. But there it was. A narrow wooden door at the end of the hallway, right where the wall used to be. She stepped closer. The music got louder. The door looked old. Much older than the rest of the house. Its wood was darker, warped, with a rusted handle and deep gouges like claw marks near the base. Emily reached for the knob but stopped. She crouched slightly, aiming the flashlight underneath the door. There was a faint sliver of light leaking from inside, and a shadow moving across it. Someone, or something, was inside. She stood frozen, the music still playing softly through the wood. Then, without warning, the sound cut out. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, 3 knocks. From the other side. Perfectly spaced. Slow. Deliberate. She stumbled backward, her back hitting the wall. Her breath caught in her throat. The flashlight flickered in her hand. Once. Twice. Then it steadied. Another knock. And then a voice. Faint. Male. Not angry. Not even loud. Just wrong. Emily, open the door. She dropped the flashlight. When it hit the floor, the beam swung up, catching something just for a moment. At the top of the door. A camera. A tiny black lens. Watching her. And beneath it, fresh fingerprints in the dust. As if someone had just installed it. Or had been waiting behind that wall for a long time. Emily scrambled for the flashlight, snatching it off the floor and backing away from the door with wide, frantic eyes. Her hands were slick with sweat, but she gripped the metal body tightly, willing it to stop shaking. That voice hadn't come from the hallway. It came from inside the door. And whoever was on the other side knew her name. She ran back to the living room, heart racing, mind in chaos. Every instinct screamed at her to get out, to leave the house and never come back. But the storm outside was in full fury now. The wind howled like it was alive, slamming against the windows hard enough to rattle the glass. Lightning flashed, brief, white-hot. And in that instant, she saw it again. A figure. Standing behind her reflection in the dark window. But when she turned around, there was nothing there. She felt like she was losing her grip on reality. Still holding the flashlight, she approached the wall where that door had appeared. But now, under the harsh beam, it didn't look like a door anymore. Just a flat wall. No seams. No handle. No hinges. It was gone. Like it had never existed. Emily pressed her hand against the spot where the door had been, and the wall felt warmer than it should have. She knocked softly. Hollow. Something was behind it. She followed the hollow echo with her ear to the wall, listening carefully. For a moment, nothing, just the sound of the storm. And then, scratching. Soft, steady, slow scratching. Like fingernails dragging down wood from the other side. She jumped back, eyes darting around the house. Every room felt smaller now. Every shadow seemed to stretch too far. The power was still out. Her phone was still dead. No signal. No light except her flashlight. Then came a noise from the kitchen. A scraping sound. Like a chair being dragged. She moved slowly, flashlight ahead, heart pounding in her ears. The beam swept across the kitchen floor. One of the chairs from the dining table had been pulled out. Just slightly. Facing away from the table. Facing the hallway. Emily stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. Then she saw what was sitting on the table. Her phone. But not where she left it. And it was on again. The screen lit up. No lock screen, no app. Just the camera. Already recording. Pointed straight at the chair. Emily moved toward the kitchen table like she was wading through a nightmare, slow, unsure, each step weighed down by dread. The chair remained still, pulled back just enough, like someone had been sitting there, or still was. She reached the table and looked down at her phone. The camera was still recording, the timer blinking at the top of the screen. She hadn't hit record. Her thumb hovered over the stop button, but she hesitated. What if it had recorded something? She tapped pause, then opened the video library. The newest clip was just a few minutes long. It showed the empty chair. Nothing else. Just silence and static. She skipped to the middle. Still nothing. But at the very end, just before the video cut off, there was a sound. A whisper. Low. Broken. Like a voice being pushed through static. Come back. Emily nearly dropped the phone. The whisper wasn't in the room. It had come from the recording. She looked around the kitchen, every surface, every corner. Nothing. But that didn't comfort her. It only made the silence heavier. Suddenly, the phone buzzed in her hand. Incoming message. But there was no sender. Just a single text bubble. You saw me. Her grip tightened. Her skin prickled with cold. She stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then, from the hallway, came another sound. Footsteps. Not fast. Not loud. Just one after the other, measured. Deliberate. Heavy. Walking toward her. She whipped the flashlight around, aiming it into the hallway. No one there. But the sound kept coming. Step. 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 Emily backed away toward the living room. She aimed the beam down the hallway, past the bathroom, toward the linen closet. The hallway light, off since the power cut, flickered on. Just for a second. And in that flicker she saw something that made her blood go cold. The mirror in the hallway. The long one outside the closet. It showed her reflection. But behind her, reflected clearly, was a man. Standing still. Barefoot. Face pale. Eyes hollow. Wearing her father's jacket. The one he was buried in. She spun around, light flailing, but the hallway was empty. When she looked back at the mirror, the man was gone. But this time, so was her reflection. Emily stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the dining chair. The flashlight beam jittered across the hallway walls, but there was nothing, no figure, no sound. Just the static hum of her own panic rising in her ears. She turned slowly to the mirror again. Still no reflection. Not just distorted. Gone. The frame hung on the wall, but the glass now showed only the hallway behind her, empty, still, and wrong. As if the mirror no longer saw her. As if she was no longer here. She reached out slowly, fingertips trembling, and touched the cold glass. It rippled. Not a crack. Not a trick of the eye. The surface rippled, like water disturbed by a breeze. She yanked her hand back. The ripples vanished instantly. Behind her, the house groaned again. A deep, aching creak of wood shifting. The floor beneath her feet vibrated ever so slightly, as if something massive had moved underneath. She spun toward the noise, flashlight darting wildly across the floorboards. Then the bedroom door, still blocked by the dresser, rattled violently. Emily froze. The sound wasn't knocking this time. It was scratching. Dozens of sharp, frantic scratches. Like fingernails. Or claws. Scraping the other side of the door. Fast. Desperate. She backed away slowly, breath shallow, arms trembling. The scratching stopped just as suddenly as it started. Then, from beneath the door, a single slip of white paper slid out. Emily stared at it, heart thudding. She crouched, picked it up. The paper was old, yellowed, torn on one edge. There was only one sentence written in faded ink. "There's no such thing as being alone." Her hands shook as she turned it over. On the back, scrawled in different handwriting, "Let me back in." A loud knock echoed behind her, back at the hallway mirror. 1, 2, 3. Emily turned slowly, holding the flashlight up. The mirror was no longer reflecting the hallway. It now showed a room she didn't recognize. Brick walls, a single chair, and someone sitting in it. The figure lifted their head. It was her. Eyes wide, mouth sewn shut. And behind her, something began to crawl down the wall. Emily's breath hitched as she stared into the mirror's impossible scene. The woman in the chair, herself, sat motionless, eyes pleading in silence, mouth stitched shut with rough black thread. Behind her, the shadows on the brick wall writhed and stretched like living things, creeping closer with every second. She stepped back, heart pounding wildly. The mirror's surface shimmered again, and for a fleeting moment, Emily swore the stitched mouth twitched into a silent scream. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The flashlight flickered and died, leaving her surrounded by the storm's relentless pounding and the cold, suffocating silence. Then came a whisper, soft and urgent, echoing from the shadows all around her. "Don't let it in." The power surged back as lights flickered overhead, and Emily gasped, stumbling toward the front door. But it was locked tight. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. She fumbled to pull it out, eyes darting around the room. A new message appeared on the screen, no sender, no number. "You invited it when you stayed home alone." The scratching began again, this time, all around the walls. The sound multiplied, like dozens of nails clawing through wood and plaster, creeping closer, surrounding her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Emily's fingers trembled as she typed one desperate message back. "Who are you?" No reply. Only the growing sound of the shadows creeping closer. Emily's phone slipped from her trembling hands and hit the floor with a soft thud. The shadows pressed in closer, the scratching now a deafening chorus all around the walls and ceiling. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she backed toward the front door. She fumbled with the lock again, the metal cold and unyielding beneath her fingers. Panic surged through her. Her only way out was locked tight. No windows were open. No way to call for help. The storm raged outside, drowning any chance of rescue. Behind her, the scratching stopped. A chilling silence fell. Then a single, heavy breath right next to her ear. Emily spun around, heart pounding in her throat. But no one was there. Only darkness. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. When she opened them, the hallway mirror was shattered, cracks spiderwebbing across the glass. A final message was scrawled in the dust on the broken frame. "You can never be truly alone." The storm outside began to subside as dawn crept through the windows. But Emily knew the nightmare was far from over. She wasn't just alone on a rainy night. She was never alone.